Okay, we will use the recitation book and we will begin the recitations from page number 10. On page number 10, we will say each verse two times in Tibetan, all the way to page number 12. And after we finish, and then we will say in English on page number 11, and we will say this each verse in English one time, all the way to page number 13. And after we finish this on page number 14, the foundation prayer, we will say this in Tibetan. So this one, each verse we'll say one time.
相的没得么伊，如果难道相马就不说，也得啷个让那么着了呀。
In English on page number 11, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. From now till my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the merit created in this practice, may I demonstrate the Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and process. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and causes. May all sentient beings live incessantly from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Is the ground come to be perfumed, strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, encircled by the four continents, surmounted by the sun and moon. Is Buddha to and offered. May all living beings enjoy the pure land. In Foundations prayer on page number 14.
per shen lo rang ye se zu no wa zhe zhen ma zhen zhou wa gen jiang de rang tong nian zhou wa zhou wei ge zhi wei xiang zhe san zhou zhong wen shen ye lu三怎么解将这怎么能什么公报没那想怎么着呗？不然同你要是东巴了，做巴掌。罗不是耶罗贝耶罗用我西西上杨道东此人修报义也能东中的这为了有的也老见我身也老特莫浪让我的今儿我那到把根基上今儿多知道高上结为觉我当把的的老年的这不是一路听着那你这辈子难道当成不送了，这妈们别给我年儿呢，所当的送我心一路，的那点的用无人念。能知道那种嘛意，但是那这家里没用，当别送人这不是的路。得郎上东北是年当，此人这北中小等家，南给巴的这北苏，也我是。是耶那的所，给我跟的样到拉玛当，人没结结快乐龙出家，当啷的用的让做呢？多知常给公帮你罗说说，个老皮了。好呀，那从马路参加西的些些。
Good morning to you all. How are you doing this morning?
아니 단당 아주 땅 로 투즈데 연대 이르마 라름 차정식 디난 로 요레 세네 때 아주 이 리완 로라 맞더니 망원은 아주 지금 송치기 토마텔라 아클고 각성 저런 레와시야 노지 데 돈지 돈 죽고 많이 뭐 띠돈도 자동 시알금 주지니 마 로트와가 레와기가 이거 데 저런 띠돈다 아주 망원은 다다 로종 차송을 때 연대 이만 돼서 마 직시했더니 영어 처음에 될라 맞추지니 망원 아주 서만 냠때 넘토와 미래와시기 요새
Well, as you have heard, we chanted together, and that is the foundations of the all excellent qualities, which is a short version of Lamrim, or the path to the enlightenment, composed by Jirmuji Lama Tsongkhapa. So the reason we chanted this is because I decided to chant this. In fact, also partially suggested by the translator Tenzin. That would be a good idea, and to sort of reflecting upon the chanting at the beginning of the each Dharma session, Sunday class. So yes, we're going to do that because this short version of the Lamrim, the path to the enlightenment, is the condensed version of entire the volumes of Lamrim teaching. So it is my hope that we can take at some point time to learning the contents of each version, and then chanting actually is reflecting up on our at the beginning of our Sunday class.
아주 뽑발라 개똥 개똥으로 측정로 칸이 결 돈정보 산라 삼지니 다 냠때 링거니가 로고 거든 리다 이거 바로.
So it is also essential and absolutely beneficial in this kind of practices, because just like in idiom or like we generally say, it's a proverb. It says reciting the good words with your mouth and reflecting upon or meditate on the actual meaning of it. And so, of course, we are here physically sit, right? Our body, we are in place now. So next two things we need to do is reciting the good words, such as this one, and then reflect upon the meaning represented by those teachings or words.
야, 담만도 진짜 담만도.
Now we're going to recite in the Mani Bella.
잔디스 좀 만도인지. 잔디스도 저도 먼저 많이 세 오만의 반응을 또 너무 시리나 미카시 사회나 무슨 돈 오만의 반응을 옴세트 링어 있음지 많이 밤에서 되니야도 something 쉐르부터 향지니 혼도 상아도 연락기지네 홈세트 나랑 루지기지 묘모와도 마리 바탕 세지네 저와동 토와들라 된종부터 시작으로 된종도 홈께도 이기가 짝다वर 되나 이기가 어디 손든도 여리가 있어 여리는 오파 33진 줄터로 쇼치 제목은 요 된자다 소소라니까 소 심로와 심지도랑이 소지는 로와 33진 날에 소소 강력한 소지기나 어떻지 제동지단다 예처를 미자뱅 숨숨서와 대도동매라 된대지네 소도 당도가다 대종아서 sem나 나랑 얘기 전에 아시라 그런 거요 그런 소소소 미로를 된대네 무반로도 좀더나 된 로이 대통 대촌빈 로와 심진 담지다 이거는 먹으면 되는 방법이고 또 담지네 그 링어 있으면 또 쉐르부터 향지고 오지네 대화 전지 겨울 쇼치 생각도 몸자고 잡님 많이 도인지.
So next we're going to practice the recitation of the sixth syllable of Buddha of Compassion, Om Mani Padme Hum. And I do believe that all of you at this point know the meaning of the Om Mani Padme Hum. Just in case some of you relatively new to this practice, and let me say just briefly tell you that Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6 syllables, the representation of the 6 syllables. Om is represent the body, speech, of mind, and Mani is represents the wisdom, and Padme is represented the great compassion, and Hum is represented the exalted achievement, or the state of enlightenment, and where that all the ignorance and defilements have been dispelled or been abandoned or completely vanished. So in other words, by the power of dependent arising, the one that have successfully achieved the state of enlightenment. So that's what the representation of the meaning of Om Mani Padme Hum. And then of course, if we want to move on, kind of look at the 6 syllable and more from a tantric point of view, and or from a tantric context, and in the high level, that these 6 syllables can be piled up, and it then represents the 5 Buddha families, and the 5 Buddha family, and again, is the result of the successful purification of our Dharma practice, and that is the pure aspect of our the original state of enlightenment. So we reflect upon reciting this mantra and reflect upon this profound meanings, and represented by this Om Mani Padme Hum, and in the wish or hope that and prayer and all such means, without exception, all of them can and free from the sufferings and the any undesirable experiences, and they are enduring, or they are they feel, for instance, like we have so much troubles now. I'm going the retired Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, was assassinated, and this is horrible news. And I personally I believe that he's a great peacemaker, and that he's a great person to do the good for the world. And so keep the individuals like him just passed away, and whoever is still in the kind of in the middle of the wars and illness or any other forms of trouble, and so deeply, sincerely prayer, and may all those beings, those who are alive or who are just passed away, all of them can be free by the power of Om Mani Padme Hum and the mantra, and may all their be released from the troubles and or sufferings they're experiencing, and may they quickly purify their body, speech, of mind, to attain the enlightenment.
그래서 네 오늘 링어스는 때문에 등에동 저월 소주 삼배 삼로데 양지를 된다 또 삼네 되네 만도인지.
Again, final points that when you think about it, may all the wish that all, right, is sincerely, deeply, that the problems or the sufferings they experience or mentally, and this is sincerity and the deep wish that they can free or released from this such a horrible state is by essence is the great compassion. So therefore you focus on this essence of which is compassion, and then recite the mantra.
Page number 70. recitation book.
ye ma ge gan dong kar lo san ji ji ra na yin ye ji shan ji do la se shang ri zi na shang cang lo ma ne ba me ma ne ba me mane bane hong mane bane hong mane bane hong mane bane hong mane bane Ligne de nos gens de Jenny Roy, Chiang Mali Wati, Sana Copper Show, the Nishi Kirmata, Garden, Sydney, Yagawa, the Shango Nishini, Sancho, Mountain Topper Show. 야, 다 가져간 데 막 교긴다. 오면 직발리. 간딱 천일 기소소와 데이터 지치 동벌 리마인 시소. 지치 마이나 개와 템버 만토르 찌르정. 데이터나 도디 타마탄 갈로스. 양 싱하미 간족기 게드기 리 치와남 치소르 지르테스. 딘 드우 코랑 기정 만용라. 콘타 지치피 간족 젠기정 젠기정 자트 메피 셰로스. 기치 간족 타오 온 지빈 드우테 데드글라 롱초파 텔리 마 지와 땅 차버 저정 티 제코 랑기 정 마살라 코 콘타 예치파 젠기정 소파 영 자트 메피 셰로스. 데르나 간족 땅 퐁보 랑기 찬이 지드피 랑진 식발라 노시 남 리피 람니 니와 짠니 종이 셔데스 랑르랑 타니트 간저당 펑보 치트 킬렘비 더덕기 더덕는 신드 차위 가위 네소 간저당 펑보 랑기 찬이 지드피 랑진 타테나 자실리 그때 펑보 남리전 펑보 찬이 메브르지스 시송마터 펑보 더지스 촌비 찬일 gen직 셰파 심당 마담비 저테스 따당 랑리 오 타타비 판슬치글라 치기 찬일 마담바 제노스 데르타나 더지스 마롱으로 지당 데르타나 간작기 당진 한키기 무그름 니기 무퍼 마롱테 회나 남카당 양디즈노스 장 랑기 퐁보 예메피 제망보 냠보 지로 지마마임바 마임바 키스브르치테 간장 땅 퐁보 랑기 차니기 오 타타비셔스 괴나 범능 오 타타비 범바메피 지르영 남버 메오 냠바당 남버 메피 지르영 범바 냠비 로키 멘 시와진 대양 사실리 다그닐 니월 렘발리 젠트 타파 닐마인 카테 젠나 렌nemba zonyo rigna superme shison ton jipali jishir pongbo dagme pa tishir pongbo lesion dagmelte pongbo ma to tenzin madribshir shiso tertir chini kanza ton pongbo rang chani ji dripi rangjin tatil nopa lopar tongsong rangjin chig tang tate kang to madripi chi tabshi ji gpa chapshi dopi ripi kanza rangjin mepi ton lopar tapi chamingi wa jambi shiwa tang da janshi tang dambre kyongor shao se oda tapar lojana
Right.
오면 직박을 뭐 어떻게 당보
Yeah. So, in Japan is to okay, so please go to your copy translation 100. And 27. I'm sorry, 126. 26 the quotes. We're going to start the quotes. It says the supplement says whatever exists individually by way of its own characteristics cannot possibly belong to one continuity. If a persons were not of the same continuity, collections of past lives would be unacceptable. If such were the case, it would contradict many sutras in which the Buddha recollected his previous lives as a Bodhisattva on the spiritual path. Even our own collection of previous actions would be impossible. If the self of today were inherently different from that of yesterday. Moreover, the wholesome and unwholesome actions that someone has done in his previous life would be dissipated, and he would not experience their outcome. This is because we cannot assert that his action will continuity as himself. This would be like saying that a person meets in this life with the happy and miserable results of prior actions without having done them, because we cannot assert that they were accumulated by another person of the same continuity as himself. It would follow that he had never accumulated their causes. Thus, having sought through the path of the logical reasoning to ascertain the fallacies of the person and the aggregates existing by way of their own characteristics, while being of the same nature, we should maintain this understanding. We must accept that the person and the aggregates are nominally of the same entity, which is an extremely subtle and difficult point. If the person and aggregates existing by way of their own characteristics were of a different nature, as the fundamental treatises called wisdom says, if the self is different from the aggregates will have no characteristics. The aggregates would then lack the three characteristics of creation, abundance, and destruction, which make them composite phenomena. They would be like a horse and an ox, which being of different entity, do not share each other's characteristics. If it were so that the aggregates and the person existed inherently, it would not be possible for them to form a composed phenomena. In that case, there would not be an object of either the mode of apprehension or its aspects of the inherent, of the innate misperception of a self of a person. Like, for example, space and the state beyond the sorrow. Moreover, if the person and the aggregates are of a different entity in terms of existing at all as a basis, and uncontrived thoughts of I should arise without them. For instance, the verses of the basis being of a different from the piece of cloth means that even when there is no vase as a basis, we can produce the thought that this is a piece of cloth. And on the other hand, if there were no cloth as a basis, we would still be able to generate the thoughts that this is a vase without making it up. The fundamental treatise called Wisdom says, it is not at all acceptable for the self to be other than the contaminated aggregates, for without the contaminated aggregates, even if you think there is something to be apprehended, there isn't. And the supplement says, therefore, there is no self apart from the aggregates, because the self cannot be conceived without dependent upon the aggregates. Thus, the person does not exist by way of its own characteristics, because it depends on the aggregates. Only when you have properly seen the invalidity of the person and the aggregates being one or different in nature by way of their own characteristics, they are established as neither inherently one nor different. The reasoning which negates the perversion of inherent existence, once the pervasive factor of being inherently one or many has been negated, valid combination properly ascertained, the lack of inherent existence of a person. This ascertainment should be nurtured through the mindfulness and alertness.